Hello and welcome to Talking Loud. I am the host Andrew Brower, and joining us today we have our usual members, the Anglophile Gamer.
Hey.
And we have Yoshi Player.
Hello, I'm Yoshi Player. Also, by the way, I just noticed you called yourself Andrew Brower. You're a CynicTheCritic.
Thank you for pointing that out, Yoshi.
You know me. I like to point obvious shit out.
So yeah, like I meant to say CynicTheCritic. That's still gonna take some getting used to.
Yeah,
Anyways, we have one less member today, and that's Muppet. But during the podcast, we're gonna be like letting him give his thoughts. Like we're gonna like let him like give his brief thoughts on it. Like he'll like we'll have it put in the podcast in the final edit. So like don't worry about that. He'll give his thoughts on the episode. So thankfully he won't be missing too much. So anyways, we finally have some new episodes, which is funny because apparently we thought that there was gonna be no episodes in September, and now we got 5 new episodes. Well, technically 4 because one of them leaked back in July.
Well, technically leaked for everyone else in my country. No, it wasn't leaked at all. But I'll talk about that later.
Oh yeah, it aired in Australia, so which means Yoshi got to see it early.
I got to see it before anyone else did, so that's lucky.
Yep,
Alright, I'll save my thoughts later.
Anyways, the episodes we're going to be talking about today are House of Lies, Game Boys, Sitting Bull, The Spies Who Loved Me, and Misconnection. Alright, House of Lies. After witnessing an excess of lying in the family, Lisa invents lie detecting glasses to try and curb the fibs.
Our first episode this week was House of Lies, which I thought was a pretty decent episode, even though I had some problems with it. Like Lisa wanting to help out her family from lying, when in fact herself she has lied several times. But it could have been a whole lot worse this episode, and it turned out pretty decent. But I could see why people wouldn't like this episode.
So it's another Lisa episode.
Yeah, This is probably the second episode we've had this season, and the latest in like I don't know how many Lisa episodes there's been. I don't know, like 5, 6. I couldn't even keep count.
Lisa's a pretty polarizing character when it comes to the fans. Like, she has her super fans, Vossi, who say that she gets too much hate, and it's like, they say they relate to Lisa so much, and that they really love who she is. And then you have the people who hate Lisa's guts, and they think she's an annoying little twit. Personally, I'm kind of in the middle. I don't hate her, but I think that she could be a lot better if she was better written.
Like, I think she does get a lot of hate, but I see why she's hated so much.
Or if her episodes were at least a little better. I mean, Snowboard was, as the title suggests, boring.
It was boring, yeah.
Making the grade was really annoying. The only really good episode we got out of Lisa, in my opinion, was Friend or Foe. I still love that episode. It's still one of my favorites of Season 2. And then just recently we had the Mad Scientist, which was alright, I guess. Yeah. Even if it did feel a bit like a rip-off of GarageBand.
But a better version of GarageBand.
Oh yeah, hell yeah.
But I mean, for Friend or Foe, like nearly every single person that you talk to about the Loud House will be like, that's one of my favorite episodes. Even like for somebody that didn't love the episode, they can still at least say that they liked it. Which, I mean, I'm one of those people. I never liked Friend or Foe. I mean, I never loved Friend or Foe, but I can still admit it's a good episode. Yeah. Now, when it comes to House of Lies, I was not looking forward to this because when I saw the promo, I was like, another one of these episodes.
Just seems like another episode where everyone was just gonna turn their backs on each other and become assholes. Like another episode this season.
We already had Frenzy. Why did we need another one of these episodes? And I get that some people will find this funny, but I'm not a fan of mean-spirited humor. I'm just not. But thankfully for House of Lies, it was actually better than I thought. Now, that being said, I think it's only okay.
Yeah, it was better than I thought it was going to be. But to be honest, there's not really much to say about this one. It was just okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, I liked House of Lies, but even I can agree that there's just not much to say. Like,
okay, I'll get the positives out of the way with this episode first. Like, the premise of it, where, like, it's about, like, Lisa, quote-unquote, helping her family, like, it could have, like, gone in a direction where I would have just hated everybody, but I didn't. And Lisa's whole thing of like where she wants to help her family, like I'll admit it does kind of seem like a bit of an ego trip for her, where it sort of seems like she's doing this because she believes that it will actually help everybody. Like it's in her own mindset where it's like if people don't lie to each other, things will be better. Which, of course, I mean, Lisa's 4 years old. She doesn't understand how the fucking world works. And what I like about this, and I thought that this episode would go in the direction of Snowboard, well, more specifically the very end, where Lisa was like, oh, it turns out, like, I only pretended to like having a snow day just so I can get everybody to go back to school. I mean, which I thought that ending was really fucking stupid, which, I mean, it didn't make me hate the episode, but it definitely worsened it. And with this episode, Lisa gets called out for how her way of helping everybody just made things worse, and she pretty much realized that she only made things worse and that she's in the wrong. And I liked that the episode did that. It at least showed some development for Lisa. Because like at the very end, like she apologizes to her family, and she's like, you know, like this whole thing, like I didn't realize that always telling the truth actually makes things worse. Which, I mean, like, I can see some people kind of being thrown off by the message here by saying that you should tell the truth, but a little white lie doesn't hurt. For me, personally, I didn't mind this message because it feels like one of the more grounded in reality messages. Because, I mean, like, for as much as you say you're an honest person, like, we all will say a little white lie here and there. It happens.
I don't know. I'm a little mixed on the message, to be honest. Like, yeah, I get it. A little white lie is necessary sometimes. But I don't know. I don't know. When I first saw the episode, I kind of got the implication... At least maybe it was because the execution that somehow lying can be okay sometimes. And when it comes to me, oh boy. Trust me, lying is not a good thing. So that's why Alright.
Okay, alright, if you say that so if you're saying that saying a lie is bad, like, okay, like what would happen if like a 2-year-old handed you a drawing of just like a bunch of lines and doodles and whatnot, like, and he was like, what do you think? Like, what would you say to him? Would you say that this looks like trash?
Perhaps.
Oh my god, you don't have no heart.
I'm joking!
Oh boy. But that's a double negative that way.
But back to the episode itself.
I do have a heart, believe me. I'm not a heartless person.
Okay, and I will say there are...
I get what you mean, though. Like, yeah, if I was in that situation, I'd probably say, yeah, it looks creative. Yeah, I think I'm
because like you can't say to a 2-year-old baby, like your drawing sucks. Like that's just so mean.
Yeah, that's true. You kind of put my thoughts out of
and then I mean I know that's a lot coming from me since I can be known to be a real dickhead when it comes to my opinion. But even still, anyways, back to the episode itself. The premise was better executed than I thought, and it had a solid message behind it. And there were a couple of jokes that I found kind of funny, a little amusing. That being said, this episode does still have problems. One, I don't get why everyone is saying this is one of the funniest episodes ever, because I don't see it.
I mean...
Like, everyone's saying, like, they were laughing their asses off to this, and I'm just like, what was so funny?
Like, I mean, this is a good episode, but it's not the funniest episode out there. I'm definitely gonna say that.
It's got its moments, but
maybe
that's
just it.
But that's
I mean, like, is the funny parts... I mean, I'm assuming that the parts that everyone thought were funny were when like two family members were like talking, and then like one had to say a lie, then they would be caught in it, and then they have to say the truth, and then the other person's reaction to it would be that they'd be pissed off. And I'm like, wait, that's supposed to be funny? I don't get it. I mean, like, I guess it could be kind of funny off the response that someone says, where it's like, oh, you're such a jerk for saying that. I mean, like, maybe it could be funny, but when you use that for like 5 minutes during the middle section of this episode, it just gets so monotonous. And that's my main issue with the episode. The pacing drags on. Like the first 2 minutes of the episode, they work pretty well. The first 2 minutes, the final 2 or 3, that also works pretty well. I actually like the climax of this episode on how they get rid of the security cameras, where they basically say like a bunch of things that are supposed to be facts, but they get them wrong, which, I mean, as a way to destroy the cameras, I thought that was kind of funny. But the middle section of this episode, it just dragged on so much. It felt very monotonous and tedious, where I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, there's lying, and then they get caught, and they tell the truth. It's like, do we need, like, 20 fucking scenes of this? Like, I get it already.
Yeah.
And not to mention, like, it just has, like, that one... It has another problem with a lot of Loud House jokes, where if this is supposed to be a joke that's being repeated over and over again, it's just not really that funny if you have to keep repeating it without adding much variety to it.
running gags only really work if there's some variety to it. If you're just gonna repeat the same thing without any differences there, then not only is the joke gonna get old, but even if it wasn't funny in the first place, it's just gonna piss you off and hammer you on the head like, "Huh, this is happening again, this is so funny!" It's just...
By the way, nice Mr. Grouse impression.
Oh, I wasn't even trying to do Mr. Grouse.
But again, like, I can't really say that it makes me hate the episode, but I will say that it does kind of hurt it. And once again, for as much as there were a couple of jokes I liked, there were also a bunch of jokes that I thought fell flat.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole return of Linja, like, why did we need that? Like, was anybody asking for that?
I guess just to appeal to the Lin fans, I guess.
I mean, as far as anything else goes in this episode, I mean, again, it's not bad. In fact, I thought it was better than I thought, and it's definitely one of Lisa's better episodes, but I just think it's okay.
Also, side note, how dare you change Lenny's appearance? Like, change her hair, like, how dare you?
You're actually offended by that?
I'm joking.
Okay.
Because you know I'm a big fan.
Anything you want to add, Voss? Because you've been pretty quiet.
I know, but that's been typically just the case with me as of recently, and I already somewhat pointed out the flat Earth line, but
I mean, like, this is a Lisa episode. This is like I guess your second favorite character. I figured
right now is literally Lisa.
I think the reason I called out the flat Earth line is just because I know someone who's like very against those kinds of people, but I'm.
Wait, hold on. I didn't even catch that. A flat Earth line in the episode.
Yeah, when Lori said the Earth is literally flat when they're trying to show the cameras.
That gives me bad
I didn't even catch that.
That gives me bad flashbacks, but I don't want to bring it up.
Anyways, before we get into like an unnecessary theory about flat earthers, let's just move on to the next episode. Game Boys.
Game Boys, yeah.
Lincoln asks to borrow Clyde's new gaming system, but Clyde struggles to trust it's safe with him.
The other episode that came out this week was Game Boys, which was a very good episode. I liked how Clyde was different and how he was like a neurotic best friend, almost like John Lovitz when it came to Lincoln borrowing his console and how he was almost going to break it. Though I could see people not liking the Lenny stuff in this episode. But honestly, this would be my highest recommendation for this week.
Well, another Clink of a Cloud episode. How about that?
Well, still it doesn't pass the bar that Season 2 had. I mean, how many Clink of a Cloud episodes were there in Season 2 Like 12? I don't know if
12 or 13.
Counts.
I guess it
somewhere in
it
that
depends on what you. I guess it depends on what you say is a Clink of a Cloud episode. I mean, like, it's like the same thing with L's for Love and whether or not people think it's a Luna episode. I personally don't think it is because, like, she gets like quite a bit to do, but it's still an episode focused on the siblings. But I'm getting off track.
Yeah.
With Game Boys, honestly, I just wasn't really feeling anything for this. I was just like, it's another Clink of a Cloud episode. I mean, the plot sounds vaguely amusing. It could work, but then again, this is Clink of a Cloud we're talking about. Like, they're one of the most boring cartoon duos I've ever seen.
Yeah, and most of the episodes we've had with these two just weren't really that interesting. There were a couple ones that we liked, like Intern for the Worst or Argue for Real, which some people don't like that for some reason. And there was Snow Way Down, which was a decent episode. So I bring this up because a Clink of a Cloud episode usually only works if there's a good dynamic between the two. But most of the time it's just them doing random crap, Clyde just going along with Lincoln's plan, and it's all played relatively straight, and it's just boring.
Right. I mean, for Argue for Real, I get the hate for it. Like, they think the message is terrible. It didn't personally offend me all that much, but that's not really part of what I'm talking about here. And I don't want to hate Clyde. I mean, I'll admit, I think he gets too much hate. Like, I think a lot of the hate he gets from fans is kind of ridiculous, even though, like, I'm not a fan of him. But, I mean, I don't know, like, some of the hate he gets, it's a bit ridiculous. I think he could be a good character. I mean, Baby Steps, that episode has grown on me. I think it's actually really good. And again, Argue for Real, Snow Way Down, they're both solid Clink of a Cloud episodes, and Clyde was actually enjoyable to watch in those episodes.
So, as for Game Boys, well, I'm gonna start this off by saying something I don't even think I was gonna say, but despite having almost no excitement for this, I actually really like this episode. I'm not gonna lie, I really enjoyed this one. And how surprising is that?
Yeah, I liked it too.
I really liked it.
I really liked it.
Because it does one thing right that most Clink and McCloud episodes don't usually get right, and that's Clyde.
Hmm.
For once in a long time, Clyde was actually funny. Like, the stuff he does made me laugh, because you know how Clyde is so paranoid about Lincoln having his system. He tries everything he can to try and make sure it doesn't get dirty. That fits perfectly with his character. Like, why haven't they done this more often with him? It just fits perfectly. I'd much rather have this than, say, oh, Clyde having nosebleeds over Lori. Like,
I'm glad they didn't incorporate that into this episode.
Or Clyde just being there to just agree with everything Lincoln says,
Or having
and
his
just
own-
Or being there to
gross
serve
moments.
absolutely no purpose.
where it's always like, I'm with you, buddy. You're my best friend, and just go along with his ludicrous
and
plan.
just be there, even though you shouldn't be in the episode. I don't care if you attack me. It's my opinion. Screw it. And if you don't think it's, and if you don't agree, then screw you.
Oh, man.
Well, screw you. But still,
You make me laugh.
I have a right to.
All right, so yeah, I agree with you, Yoshi. I think if Clyde was written more as like, I mean, it is kind of a stereotypical role to be like the overly cautious and nervous friend, but I think it fits Clyde better than most other episodes he's in, because it actually bounces off really well with Lincoln, who kind of plays as like somebody who doesn't take as much caution into things, and is just kind of like, I don't want to call him a slob, but he's just kind of like very nonchalant, and like he doesn't really take much proper care of things. But like he doesn't really damage them either. Like, I like that, like, he doesn't really like use this device where he damages it. He still uses it, but he doesn't really like take over. Like, that's actually one of my favorite jokes in the episode, and it is a running joke that I actually think works really, really well here. Is like, he doesn't really like Lincoln never really takes notice of like anything in his surroundings that could possibly affect the device. Meanwhile, Clyde notices every single little detail.
Like, he's just so sucked into his game that he fails to pay attention to anything, and then there's Clyde who's trying to make sure nothing happens, so...
And he sometimes does like everything, which I get the point, but still,
It was just
It
really
was
funny.
initially going to remind me of like the Donut of Shame, but I think it lost that connection when I actually watched it.
It even gets up to a point where, okay, this happens later on in the episode where Clyde gets kicked out, which we'll talk about later. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but like Clyde gets kicked out, and then like he's trying to like stay in the house and monitor like Lincoln using the device, and like he's hiding in like a plant or something. Lincoln's at like the dinner table. Lenny's like on the phone getting some juice. They're probably like about maybe like 12 to 20 inches apart from each other. Like they're not really close together. And then like while Lenny's like on her phone and pours a glass of juice, like the juice isn't really like, it's not really all that close to Lincoln, and Clyde is so paranoid that he gets a long straw and drinks juice out of the cup, even though like it doesn't really seem like it's going to affect the device.
Like,
It's just like it
barely
could
gonna
possibly
touch it.
affect the device. And then like
I doubt
and
it.
then like Lenny notices that her cup is gone, then she pours more from the pitcher in the glass. And then like Clyde just goes out of his way to like just drink
drinks
from the
the
pitcher and then the
entire
glass
jug.
where it's all
He
empty.
doesn't drink
And
from
then
the
like
cup, he
after
drinks
Lenny
from the
notices,
entire
she like
jug.
looks at Lincoln and is like, Lincoln, stop drinking my pickle juice. That scene was just hilarious to me.
Yeah, I love that though.
Yeah, I guess it was kind of funny. But I guess a lot of people didn't think that way because...
Really?
Well,
That's stupid. And this is coming from someone who hates the garage band scene. I think this scene is funny.
like, as soon as this came out, people were getting angry. They were like, you made Lenny mad at Lincoln, how dare you? And yeah, I understand, it did give people flashbacks of the scene in GarageBand, but here's the difference though. In GarageBand, it was kind of...
Did anyone overall really hate that scene?
Bossy, you're interrupting Yoshi.
Yes,
Ah, yeah, it's a stupid habit.
It's like with GarageBand, it just kind of seemed out of nowhere and mean-spirited for Luna to just suddenly be a dick to Lincoln. But at least in this episode, you have to understand that, I don't want to say Lenny's stupid, but she's not the brightest. So of course she'd be of course Lincoln would be the first person she'd assume would drink it because, well, she's Lenny. What else do you expect?
This is her ditzy behavior actually used well, and is actually used to be funny. It's not like other scenes where they just use her ditziness just to be like, I mean, I guess it could be funny, but it's just stupid.
Then people got angry again because she got mad at Lincoln again later in the episode when they saw Clyde under the table. But when that happened, people got even more angry, and I was initially on the fence like, oh, alright, I think we're going too far here, but then the scene was Saved by Lola's line, And she was like, "Oh, that's rude. He's probably hungry."
I mean, that personally didn't bother me all that much.
No,
And
it
again,
didn't
like
bother me either.
like I said, a lot of the comedy here is just, it works a lot. I think the only joke I didn't like, and I mean it's kind of obvious, but it's the fart joke from Lynn. Where, like Clyde's
are they
hanging
seriously
with
still
people.
doing this? I mean,
It's one of, yeah. And then like Lynn farts, and then it's right in front of Clyde's face, and then Lynn's like, "Oof, like what'd she say? Hats the chef." Some stupid shit like that.
it's like this is now
But-
the 3rd episode this season where Lynn's had a fart joke. I think that's now surpassed the amount of times it's happened in season 1. It's like, are we seriously still doing this? There's nothing beyond the joke.
It's funny to somebody, I guess. Anyways, save your anger for the next episode. But
Oh, I will.
and here's another thing I also kind of noticed. Did anybody get okay, during that scene of where like Clyde's in the bathroom and like when Lincoln's going to go use the bathroom and then he notices Clyde, he's like, "Clyde, what are you doing here?" And Clyde's like about to pour a bath for him, and I'm like getting some, I don't know, like
It's
pseudo
sort of-
homosexual vibes going on.
Oh gosh, imagine if they made Lincoln and Clyde shipping a thing.
That would be hilarious.
But hey,
And I don't mean to be
Hey.
homophobic or anything, but that would just be funny to me because it's the fans like taking this so seriously to the point that they actually think they're gay.
but hey, even if it does happen, it'd be better chemistry than Lincoln and Ronnie Ann. Oh, I just went there.
Right, okay. Which like at that point now,
We'll stop
okay,
talking
so
these people.
we haven't even gotten into like the rest of the plot yet. Anyways,
Yeah.
so at the very beginning of the episode, Clyde got this new device. It's called the Snap, which I mean, I don't follow video games, but I'm assuming this is supposed to be like a parody of the Switch.
Oh yeah, by the way, this episode is full of Nintendo references, like the title card alone. The episode is literally named after the Game Boy. And then the picture at the start has Super Mario Bros. References. Then there's the fact the console's called the Snap, which is obviously a spoof of the Switch. This episode has a lot of Nintendo references, and only a Nintendo fan like me is gonna notice that. And Bossy.
So anyways, like
I didn't notice. Alright, were those the only ones?
okay, so like now, like okay, so Clyde says like he can't use his device the next day because it's like what, screen-free Saturday or something. He said that in the episode, and then Lincoln's like, "Oh, what if I hold on to the device for the day?" And then Clyde, like, he's not comfortable with it, but he's like, "Sure." And pretty much for like, and then the next day, Clyde does everything in his power to like stay at Lincoln's house and make sure that the device doesn't get ruined because he doesn't trust Link. I mean, Lincoln's his best friend, but like having him hold on to the device at his house, he wouldn't trust it because it's like he has a busy household and a lot of people. And there's like a lot of things that can happen to the device, and so, and again, like I just think a lot of the comedy here works, even for a plot that is as basic as it is. It's executed really well.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Like for me,
well.
like plots that are predictable and basic, I could be fine with that if like they're executed in a way where I just find the episode enjoyable and amusing, where I enjoy the characters, I enjoy the writing, I'm still into the story and what's gonna happen next. Like I can still enjoy that. I mean, the only time I can't enjoy it is if there's nothing interesting going on with the plot. Here, there's stuff that's going on with the plot that's interesting.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, yeah, very interesting stuff. And there was at least a good dynamic between Lincoln and Clyde, so there's that.
I mean, who knows? Maybe Jeers for Fears might actually be decent. But we'll have to see. That comes out next month.
Yeah. And that's when the next episodes come out, by the way. Next month.
Yeah.
Halloween. Oh boy.
But overall, yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. Like, I mean, it's probably my favorite episode of the week.
Once
Nah,
again,
I think we pretty much covered most of anything besides, unless you want to mention Lincoln's voice, but otherwise.
Oh, yeah. I
I
forgot
mean, we
to
might as well
mention
bring
that.
this up because I know some people will want our opinion on this.
Lincoln's voice changed in this episode because his last voice actor hit puberty. So they got a new voice actor. And what are my thoughts?
Yeah, his name is Tex
Tex
Hammond. Or
He's the son of Grey Griffin, who voices Lana, Lola, and Lily. And as for my thoughts on his voice, it's alright, I guess.
I don't mind it. It's pretty good. It's noticeable, which I don't mind. But
He does sound noticeably younger from what I could tell.
But then again, that was the case with his last voice actor too. Because it's like in the last half of season 1, Lincoln's voice got deeper, and all of a sudden it's younger again. It's like, is there now a timeline going on here?
It's a floating timeline. I don't think they're ever gonna like.
No way.
Have it make no sense. It's like solving a Rubik's Cube. It's just like, it's really hard to figure out.
Then again, the show forgets continuity, so why am I complaining?
Yeah, that's true. Anyways, next episode we're going to be talking about is Sitting Bull. The older sisters reluctantly let Lynn into their babysitting club, but she quickly proves to be too aggressive.
The third episode that came out this week was Sitting Bull. Personally, I did not care for this one. The sisters were really good. The older sisters were good, but Lynn herself was very obnoxious and annoying. Yeah, I would say this is the worst of the week, but there's 2 more episodes that are not that great.
I mean, at this point now, I mean, am I ever gonna like a Lynn episode? I mean, I know I'm starting off this negatively, but it's like, I've given Lynn chance after chance after chance to have a good episode. Because, like, she started off terribly with Space Invader. I know, I'm sorry, I don't love that episode as much as everybody else, but... And then, like, she had The Loudest Yard, which I know a lot of people hated. I thought it was just, I'm indifferent towards the episode. And then there was No Such Luck, and that's when everyone was like, Lynn is the worst character ever, and everyone started hating on her. And hopefully with Winner Takes All, I was like, okay, maybe this could be the episode where Lynn ends up being redeemed. That wasn't the case, because that episode was mediocre. I know there are people who like it, but I just don't. And then there's Net Gains, which, I mean, it is her best episode, but even then it's just okay. And now we have Sitting Bull, which I can't believe I was looking forward to this episode. I mean, I actually was hoping this would be good, because I think the plot could have actually developed Lynn in a way where I actually start liking her.
The plot sounds incredibly different from what we actually got in the episode. Because let me ask you, if you read that plot, what do you think would actually happen? Like,
I would think that Lynn would be... Okay, here's my idea of how I thought the plot would go. Is that Lynn would have to babysit, like... I mean, I don't even care if it was with the younger siblings or a different family. Just, she'd be babysitting for one night, and halfway through the night, like, her babysitting methods are not working, the kids don't like her, and then halfway through, she realizes that, like, she's making things worse, and she kind of learns, like, what she can do to make things better from her older sisters. Like, maybe she kind of, like, takes ideas from each older sister on how to properly babysit, and then by the end of the night, it ends up working, and then, like the kids end up loving Lynn, and they're like, we want to have her babysitter again. And that would, honestly, I feel like if they did that, I would actually really be praising this episode.
Yeah, it would easily be Lynn's best episode if they went that route.
Because for me, I would just be like... And it could still have the message about how like your babysitting method will not always work, and that sometimes you have to change things up, which I think would have been a good message. But I'll get into that in a little bit with this episode, because I didn't like this at all. I think this might be her worst episode yet. I mean, the moral of the episode, even though I don't think it's executed well at all, it's still a decent moral. I think what Lynn did at the very end of the episode was nice. I mean, she got the sisters' client back. And, I mean, the scenes with the 4 older sisters together, I wish I saw more of that. I actually liked how they interacted with each other. I thought they all had really good chemistry. I wouldn't even be surprised if we had, like, some behind-the-scenes footage of, like, all the 4 main voice actors for, like, Lori, Lenny, Luna, and Luann were, like, all in the same room trading these lines together, because, like, I thought they all played off each other really well. That's all I have to say about the positives, because everything just starts going downhill after the first, like, minute of this episode. Like, for one, Lynn, at this point now, I mean, like, it just kind of seems like I'm just going to have to accept that this is Lynn, who she is. Like, she's going to be egotistical, brash, overly aggressive. That's just who Lynn is. And at this point now, I just have to accept that. But on that level, I can still be objective and say that it's annoying as shit. Because it is. I mean, like, she still continues to be really annoying here. Her ego just drives me insane. I've never found her overly aggressive and hyperactive behavior funny. Mainly because it involves physical comedy, pretty much where it involves harming other people besides herself. I mean, there aren't any fart jokes in this episode, I mean, which I guess that might be a positive. But there are, like, a bunch of issues I have here. For one, Lynn ends up, like, being a part of the babysitters club, because after the older sisters ask Lincoln if he can babysit, like, these 2 kids, Lynn's like, oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm next in line. I should babysit those 2 kids. And then the older sisters are like, all right, fine. We end up seeing Lynn babysitting like these 2 kids. And of course, she does it in her own way where like she forces them to wrestle each other, which they don't want to do, drink raw eggs for dinner, which they end up throwing up after Lynn tells one of them like a really gross story about like an injury that she has. So she does a terrible job at it, which, yeah, it makes sense. She did a terrible job. And then like after she gets home, like Laura gets a phone call from the parents that's like, we know about what you did. We never want to have you babysit our kids again. So like after the older sisters tell Lynn, she's like, how could it be my fault? I'm great with kids. And so the older sisters are like, sorry, Lynn, but you're not good at it. And then Lynn's like, huh, well, you know what? I'm still going to be the best dang babysitter ever. So what does she do? She pretty much ends up taking all of the other sisters' clients, babysits all their kids, and then pretty much ends up losing all of them. All because she let her ego get in the way because she thinks she's the best dang babysitter ever. Even though she doesn't realize that the problem is with her. But now, like, the older sisters notice, and they decide for revenge that they're going to have Lynn babysit like this one client's family where they have like really horrible kids. And so like after they tell Lynn like she's a great babysitter and that she can babysit these kids, Lynn's like, all right, I'll do it. And then like after like she ends up getting to the house, like it's a lot to handle. Which, seeing that scene, I was like, yes, Lynn deserves this, okay? She pretty much ended up losing her sister's clients all for the most petty of reasons. Because she wants to be the best dang babysitter ever, and that she doesn't want to, and she refuses to admit that it's her fault for what happened. So of course, like the other sisters at home, and they're like, I bet Lynn's having a terrible time. And then like 10 seconds later, the sisters are like, I feel bad. Like, I think we punished Lynn too hard. We should go save her. And I'm just like, no, don't. She deserves this. Seriously, like she pretty much went behind your backs and ruined like your babysitting club, whatever it is, I don't know. And then like as soon as the sisters get to the house, Lynn's like all okay. She's like, hey, what's going on? It turns out she took care of them. And so like Lynn is like wondering like why the older sisters are there. And then like they end up saying like I don't remember like what one of them said, but it's like we set them up and we knew they were terrible. And Lynn's like in outrage and she's like, why would you do that? I thought you said I was a great babysitter. And then they're like, well, you're not a great babysitter. And then, like, after that, the older sisters apologize. Lynn kind of apologizes for, like, how she behaved, which, of course, given Lynn, she ends up, like, punching each sister, because it's like, we can't have a moment where it could be sentimental. We gotta, like, throw in some stupid physical comedy. And then the episode ends, which, I mean, where Lynn does get the clients back, but we end up getting this moral where it's like, Lynn, like, all Lynn needed was just a family that was as crazy as her. So the problem wasn't with her, the problem was with the families that they chose. That was the real issue. So basically this episode went out of its way to show that there's nothing wrong with Lynn, she shouldn't change what she does, and that all that we need to do was just accept who she was and just make sure that she gets the right clients. Somebody shoot me, please. This is just total fucking bullshit.
Are you done now?
Go ahead.
You done? No, I've been bottling up my anger with this one for quite a long time. So yeah, everything you pretty much mentioned about this episode, I would go into detail, but you already said that. But this episode actually got to the point where it fucking broke me. Because this episode... You didn't bring this up, but basically what this episode tries to do is, it tries to slap the fucking viewer across the face for wanting Lynn to change, wanting to see her develop, or even wanting to see her get punished for her stupid behavior. Basically, this reminds me of everything I've had to put up with when it comes to people saying that I am so stupid for not liking Lynn. So now the episode itself wants to treat me like a selfish asshole for not liking Lynn. Well, fuck off, Loud House. I'm allowed to have my own opinion on how I feel about her. She's still to this day remained one of my least favorite characters on the show. No, the fucking least favorite. Because after all the bullshit she's done, I can't grow to like Lynn. And after every episode where I've given her a chance to develop, she never does it. And this episode wants to say that who cares if Lynn develops? You should just love her for who she is. She's not the problem. It's what everything else happened that's the problem. That is just stupid, because now we're somehow supposed to like Lynn for what she did. Look at what she did in the fucking episode. She got their sister's clients fired. She probably put a bunch of kids under misery. And yet somehow that wasn't her fault. It was just the wrong family that she chose. So Lynn pretty much learned nothing in this episode because all she needed was the right family. She's still a great babysitter. Like, the stuff she does in this episode really annoys me. And this episode is one of the few examples where I can easily sum up every problem that I have with Lynn. She's arrogant, she's too stupid, she's too caught up in her own selfish ego, she's not nice in the slightest, she's an awful person who is refusing to develop, yet this stupid episode wants to make us think that we are horrible people for wanting to see Lynn get punished, and that it wants us to feel bad that she's not a good babysitter, and somehow we're supposed to feel scorned for the sisters for setting Lynn up to that family, except are we just going to forget the fact that we mentioned this before? She got the clients fired! You can't give me that fucking excuse that somehow we're wrong for how we felt about Lynn. That's just stupid. That's insulting to me. That's like saying, Yoshi Player, you're an awful person for wanting to see Lynn get punished and thinking she's developed. There's nothing wrong with Lynn, it's just everything else that's going wrong. She's a great person in general. No, she's fucking not. That's a dumbass excuse, and I feel insulted just for how this episode treats me like I'm some sort of idiot. So, yeah, in this episode, in general, fuck it. I hate this episode so much. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna go as far as to say this is one of the worst episodes of Season 3. In fact, I'm not even gonna go as far as to say it's close with Frenzy as my least favorite episode of Season 3. Because if it's just gonna go out of its fucking way to insult me for how I felt, that's just stupid. And I know a lot of you are gonna say, oh, Yoshi Player, you're being judgmental on Lynn. Guess what? I've given her chance after chance. I've given her a chance with Winner Takes All. I've given her a chance with Net Gains. Now I've given her a chance with this episode. You know what this episode made me realize? I'm never going to like Lynn, and I'm never going to give her a chance again. And after what this episode did, she doesn't deserve a fucking chance anymore. So stop trying to make me feel like an asshole for not liking Lynn and wanting to see her get punished, because clearly there's nothing wrong with her. Fuck off. It's just fucking stupid.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, again, like a lot of the points you said are pretty much what I had in mind as well, which is like, this episode pretty much wants it to be like where the problem isn't with Lynn, it's with how people hate on her too much. It's like, sorry for having an opinion. Like, sorry that, like, I can't enjoy everything Lynn does.
Guess what?
I mean, and if you don't like my opinion on Lynn, then don't listen to me. Don't read on my things on why I don't like Lynn. If you are that much of a huge fan of her and you don't want to hear somebody have a different opinion on her, then like don't read about it. Don't listen to it. But you can't tell me that I can't express my opinion about it.
It's just stupid. It makes you look less... when you say something like that, it makes you look less like a critic and more like a selfish baby. So anyone who says that, just leave me alone. I'm allowed to have my own opinion. And you know what? As for the writers, you feel like fucking babies for wanting to do this with this episode. So much so that you've created an episode where somehow I'm not supposed to hate Lynn. Just shut up and leave me alone.
Alright, well, we might as well move on to the next episode.
Yes,
since
please.
I mean, unless Fossey, you have anything to add to this.
I mean, I really got nothing besides I was bothered less by Lynn because I just don't dislike Lynn as much. I mean, you guys basically tore it apart, and honestly, you know what? That's enough. I'm just gonna go saying that it's an okay episode and just leave it at that.
I mean, if you like Lynn, that's cool. I mean, I'm glad you can like Lynn, Fossey, or anybody else for that matter.
Just don't judge us for hating her. It's annoying.
But yeah, I mean, it's like, but I do understand like all your opinion stuff. Like, if you can't agree with. Like, if you can't agree, at least accept. Come on. Oh, wait. We lost that ability to do that forever ago. I remember. Oh, yeah, this fandom lost the ability to do that forever ago.
And keep in mind that we don't just, like, hate on her, like, non-stop. The only time we criticize Lynn is, like, if it's in an episode where it's obvious.
Uh-huh.
Like, why else did we talk about, like, Lynn being annoying in Ruthless People? Because she was annoying in that episode. So, of course, we talked about it.
Except the issue is, like, everybody started hating after No Such Luck, but where did all her love come from?
Net gains, obviously.
Like, probably net gains, yes.
Well, I don't get the
What happened at all?
I don't get the praise of that episode beyond the whole thing of Lynn learning her lesson, which it was nice. That's at least one thing I can appreciate about that episode. Lynn did learn her lesson and realized it on her own.
No, in this episode it says, oh, she doesn't need to learn a lesson, it's the sister's fault. Just shut up.
Well, alright, yeah, you know what? I've already talked a lot about this episode. Let's just move on.
Yeah, let's just move on. I'll say it's okay and just leave it at that.
Okay, next episode. The Spies Who Loved Me. Ronnie Ann wants to go downtown, but her grandparents think it's too dangerous, so they decide to spy on her.
The next episode this week was Spies Who Loved Me. Man, that episode wasn't good. Flip was funny, and he gave out free nachos to Lincoln. Oh yeah. If anyone says that's Ronniekin with Lincoln and Ronnie Ann talking, newsflash, it's not. It's just them talking as friends. They're just friends. Yeesh, you guys treat everything like it's a shipping. But anyway, the episode itself is just very cliche. It's very much like watching any other episode of Loud House. So yeah, I didn't really care for it.
So, is this the best episode of Season 3 so far?
No, not even close. Not bad, but not even close.
Well,
Why the hell is this even a Loud House episode? I mean, this really should be feeling like a pilot to the Casa Grande spin-off.
It is!
There's barely any Loud House characters in here. Well, Lincoln makes an appearance, but that's really about it.
Yeah, I mean, he's here for a quote-unquote subplot where he's waiting in line to get a Flippy. But all he does in the episode is just like check in with Ronnie Ann. He's like, "Hey, how are you doing?" I'm doing good. I'm still waiting in line for a Flippy. My parents are spying on me. Okay, see ya. That's all he does in the episode. I mean, if that's what you want, then that's cool. But it just kind of seems, pointless.
So yeah, essentially, this is pretty much a Ronnie Ann episode, which really doesn't fit right with the Loud House. It really should just be a pilot to the Casa Grande spin-off. But no, gotta fill that void somehow because we don't have any other ideas.
I mean, personally, that doesn't bother me all that much. But the thing is like, okay, look, I'm going to talk about this in a later video for, like, my CynicTheCritic channel. One of my videos I'm actually planning on talking about is where I talk about my issues I have with Ronnie Ann. I'll give you a preview of, like, some of the things I don't... I mean, Ronnie Ann's not a bad character. I just never have gotten the hype behind her. Like, people have talked about, like, she's such a great character and whatnot. And even after this episode, people who didn't care for Ronnie Ann are now saying she's a great character. And I'm like, how? Like, yeah, she saved her family by doing some cool skate tricks, but that doesn't make her a great character. And, like, even then, like, I don't think Ronnie Ann's terrible here. I don't know, I just didn't care for her. Like, if anything, she just kind of played out the role of being Lincoln. And the Casa Grandes just kind of played out the role of being the sisters. The plot of this episode sounds like just the most basic Loud House plot ever, where, like, Ronnie Ann, Lincoln, is going to do something, and the Casa Grandes, the sisters, are worried for him, and so they try and spy on him to make sure that he's okay. This sounds like a Saint Lincoln roleplay, if I'm being honest.
Like, if you replaced Ronnie Ann with Lincoln and the Casa Grandes with the sisters, nothing would change. It would just play out the same way. Just swap Ronnie Ann out with Lincoln and the Casa Grandes with the sisters, and you pretty much get the same episode.
Holy shit, I really just did realize something. This honestly sounds like a roleplay for somebody who is, like, part of, like, that Saint Lincoln subsection of the fandom. You know, those fans that, like, love everything about Lincoln and they treat him like a precious little child?
And they don't want anything bad to happen to him? It's like,
that's what this kind of sounds like, except they have Ronnie Ann and the Casa Grandes, so let's just have it as sort of a test pilot for the spin-off series.
Which is not really a good sign. But anyway, I guess now that we're done with Ronnie Ann, about this episode, what'd you think?
I didn't care for this at all. This was so boring.
Not great.
I guess I didn't find it as boring as, like, Absent-Minded. Because remember, I fell asleep during that episode. At this one...
I remember that. You said you almost fell asleep. I actually do believe that.
No, I'm serious. No, I actually did fall asleep. I think I did say that.
Because, like, I rewatched that episode and I'm like, this is the most boring shit ever.
But this episode, I almost fell asleep because it's just not interesting, honestly.
It's a plot that's been done, like, 1,000 times already by, like, other cartoons. And there's, like, really nothing interesting to it whatsoever. I mean, the best I could say is that there's, like, a few amusing moments. Like, the Casa Grandes, they are still amusing to watch, even though I think, like, they're stupider here than usual. I mean, the grandfather thinks that a rat ate Ronnie Ann, and I'm like, what's the joke?
Yeah, that was weird. Like, really?
You can't just have weird
And-
writing like that. You gotta
And
have
I
some
mean, for
level of
as much as I think Carl is kind of funny, I'll admit that his kind of macho personality joke thing, it is kind of getting old a little bit. Where like, even though I will admit that line about like how Carlotta was holding his hand and he was like, hey, like I want people to think that I don't have a girlfriend or something like that. I thought that was kind of funny. But otherwise, this episode was just really meh.
Like, I don't even know what else to say about it. It was just basic. It was a
Right,
I can't
and
really
again,
find
like
anything
if
that stood
you love this episode and you think it's fantastic, great for you. I'm glad you can enjoy this, but I'm just saying, there just isn't really anything interesting going on.
out.
You know, I can't call it. I mean, because I can't call it terrible because there really isn't anything here that annoys me. But I can't call it great because there just isn't a lot here that I would say is fantastic. What this reminds me most of is like No Place Like Homeschool, which this episode aired before the Spies Who Loved Me. I rewatched it and I was too kind to that episode. It has not aged well. Like, it's one of the most dull and boring episodes ever. And that's what the Spies Who Loved Me reminded me of. Just having a really basic plot with characters that are just kind of not really doing anything. And it just ends in the way that you expect it to. So, I mean, like, again, that's all I can really say is that it's just meh. I mean, sorry if I wasn't super positive about this episode, but that's just my opinion.
At least you don't have to be mad by the fact that we didn't think it was bad. It's just, it doesn't do anything special to make it itself stand out as being good, but it also doesn't do anything frustrating to make it stand out as being really bad, like Sitting Bull. I mean,
I guess the only mildly annoying thing about this episode is that the only role Bobby has here is that he's essentially playing Lenny. Where, like, for most of the episode, he's trapped in a freezer because it's like, get it? Like, he's so stupid he can get trapped in a freezer.
Yeah, all the signs here are just not making me excited for the Casa Grande's episode. I feel like every character is just going to be the same as one from the Loud House. Like, you're going to have Ronnie Ann being Lincoln, you're going to have Bobby being Lenny, and you're just going to have a couple other characters being the sisters, I guess.
Like, okay, yeah, I mean, like, while I watch this show, I'll watch a couple episodes, but if I'm not impressed, I'm not going to watch the rest of it. Yeah, I mean, and like, for me, like, my prediction for this is that we're going to get one season of it, and if the ratings are low, it's going to get canned.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what's going to happen. But hey, I wouldn't be shocked if it didn't get cancelled because people love Ronnie Ann.
Like, I don't want to go into the series with negative expectations.
I thought it was a good episode, but it wasn't like a great one. Like, I think I like it just a tiny bit less than House of Lies. Like, that's legit. Like, the thing is like, the first half is just kind of, do we really need, like, did they really have to have a reason to be paranoid? Like, did they really? Lincoln has really no reason to be here, and I think Ronnie Ann's probably the best thing about the episode. Otherwise, that's about all I can really say about it.
Alright.
So, yeah.
Anyways, now we have the last episode to talk about, the one that was leaked early. Misconnection. Lori and Bobby worried that dating long distance is causing them to lose their connection.
This was a really disappointing episode. I was hoping Lori and Bobby would have broken up in this episode, but they're still together, and we don't really know much about their relationship still. I have another big problem. They freaking closed John Juan's Cafe when they spent the whole episode in it, which, if anyone's seen the other podcast, I really hate Save the Date. And now that they closed it kind of feels like they're retconning it, which I personally despise. But yeah, other than that, I have nothing else to really talk about with these episodes. If I had to rank them, Game Witch would be the best of the week, with honorable going to House of Lies. And worst of the week, it's either Same Bulls or Spies Who Love Me. Let's just say they're tied for the worst, along with Misconnection being dishonorable mention. Anyway, if would want to know a full-on review on those episodes and why I didn't go into detail, just message me. But anyway, this is Muppet Spot Talking Loud, signing out.
So Yoshi, you got to see this episode early.
I did, actually. Because, fun fact for all you guys who live in the States, this episode actually came out really early because there was a certain week this year in July where they would air episodes that weren't aired in Australia yet, and one of those episodes was Misconnection. So in a sense, the episode was actually leaked, although not technically leaked because it was aired in a different country. And in my country for once, so I got to see it first, before anyone else did, and then a few days later, big shock, the episode was leaked online. So I guess I wasn't shocked by that. But yeah, I got to see this episode first, and let's just say that my opinion on it is less than positive.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I saw. Okay, yeah, like I saw the episode. I already talked about this episode about 2 months ago. Like I did a review of it on my DeviantArt, so if you want to go check it out, then go ahead. But I rewatched this episode because I was like, it's been 2 months. Maybe my opinion has changed on it, so I might as well watch it. My opinion has not changed whatsoever. I pretty much feel the same way about this as I did 2 months ago. I think it could have been good. I think there's some interesting ideas here, but the problem is that the episode never really like explores any of these ideas. For one, like they take the littlest things so seriously and make it so overdramatic. Which I get it, they're teenagers, they're 17, but even still, like it's like the stuff they're overdramatic about, it's just not interesting. I mean, because like Saved You Will about soapy teen drama opera things that are on TV, but at least like they have interesting stories that have like juicy details and twists. For here, there just isn't anything interesting. And for me, I feel like the whole episode was just so corny and fluffy.
And the problem is that there was no real stakes with this episode. Because there's nothing wrong with their relationship, they just had a couple of misunderstandings. So in a sense, that almost makes this episode not even dramatic in the slightest, because they're not really having problems, they just had a couple of misunderstandings that just led up to nothing.
Right, like it's like, oh, we had a weird phone conversation, and now it's like, I think we might be breaking up. Now, here's the thing is like the plot itself, it actually could have worked. Like, the things that could be getting in the way of their long-distance relationship, there are a lot of factors that could come into play. Like whether it's school, or family, or other interests in life, or maybe another potential relationship that you might want to start, but you are in this other one. These are interesting ideas that could come into play. But it's like the most like interesting thing that they could have thought of for what is making their relationship worsen is that there was some misunderstandings. Like when Lori sat on her bed and thought there was a snake on there, Bobby interpreted it as like, wait, you're not interested in me? Or like how Lori was saying something, and then like when I don't know, what's the dog's name from the Casa Grandes? Wallow like puked. Then like Lori took that as like a misunderstanding, and then they talk a little awkwardly a little bit, and then afterwards it's like, I think we're breaking up. This is like so corny.
They take the littlest things so seriously.
And again, there's like no real stakes or drama to this.
And that's another problem too. Is this episode trying to be serious, or is it trying to be funny? It doesn't decide. One side it's trying to be silly because, you have Lori and Bobby doing all these things to try and impress each other, and then all of a sudden we're supposed to feel sorry for them because they might be losing their relationship. You can't pick two sides of a story. This is a problem I have with that episode like a fridge too far. You've got to pick a genre and stick with it. Trying to mix it up never works. I mean, for like
70%, for like 80% of this episode, it's trying to play off their relationship as a joke, and then in flips after they spill their food, and then after they cry about it, and then when they go back to the Vanzilla, suddenly everything is taken seriously, and we're supposed to feel sorry for them. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm sorry if I sound like an asshole, but I just don't care.
At least this episode did make me believe that these two were in love. I mean, that's something
that's the one thing I'll say is that Lori and Bobby's chemistry, it's believable. I believe them as a couple, but I mean, like, they can have good chemistry, but if I don't care about their relationship, then it doesn't really matter. And there's like a bunch of other things that happen in this episode that, again, are interesting ideas. They just don't do anything with them. Like, there are multiple scenes here in this episode where they have like a split screen format to show Bobby's perspective and Lori's perspective. Could have been interesting. Like, you have two different perspectives on the same scenario. The problem is, like, with both perspectives, it's literally the same outcome. Where it's like both Lori and Bobby are upset. Then both of them have family members come in to comfort them. Then both of them talk about what they should do. And like they both say, give grand romantic gestures. And then both of them are like, I'm going to give each other a grand romantic gesture. And it's like, that's the problem. They're both doing the same thing. So it's like, what's the point of the split screen format?
Split screen only really works if it's on a similar idea, yes, but you have to have two characters doing different things, not the same things.
Like, doing different things for the same scenario. Like, that's what makes it interesting.
That's the problem with this episode. It has stuff that's interesting, but then it does nothing with it.
Right, and then we get to the we get to the very end of the episode where okay, I'm gonna briefly go off topic here, but here's something I actually would have liked to have seen in this episode, and I don't know how many of you are gonna disagree with me or not, but I'm gonna say it anyways. What I think would have been interesting for this episode is that it could have been interesting if maybe Lori and Bobby take a break from their relationship and just focus on their own lives. Like maybe Lori can see what it's like being single and not having a boyfriend, focusing more on herself and what she wants to do with her life. I mean, in the series, we haven't really known what she wants to do for her career. The closest thing we've learned is that she wants to play in golf, but even then, it's barely been explored. And as for Bobby, I mean, it does seem like he has plans set to run the bodega with the Casa Grandes, but again, it's barely explored. Having them break up would actually allow the writers to have these characters explore that. And have them break up in this episode, and then kind of end it on a bittersweet note where they do still talk to each other, but they're talking as friends. Still being supportive of each other. And that maybe in a future episode, when they figured their shit out, they get back together. If they had done this with this episode, I would be praising it to high heavens. I would have been like, this is a really mature ending, and I gotta give the episode credit for it. But nope, that doesn't happen, because at the very end, all they needed was just a simple phone conversation with Bobby's trapped in the bathroom, and now they're back together.
I get that it's a kid's cartoon, it wouldn't explore that aspect, but still, kids need more than that, They need to understand this stuff. What's gonna happen when they get into a relationship?
Right, and the message itself, I can say that I do respect the message, saying that all that for romantic relationships, it doesn't have to be based on grand romantic gestures. Sometimes just talking with your partner and just communicating with them, no matter how, is just more than enough. But you know what? Again, it's an interesting idea. It's probably the only idea in this episode that's at least explored a little bit. But again, we're talking about Lori and Bobby here, and the most deep their conversations get is a debate on what they would give up, cheese or dessert. That's the most detail we get into how deep their relationship is. Which again, I get it. It's a high school romance. What else am I expecting? But I don't know. I've seen high school romances that are more interesting than this.
Yeah, but yeah, as you were saying, I completely agree with what you said. If they had broken up, and just because I say I want them to break up doesn't mean I want them to be miserable and not get back together. If they want to get back together, they can, but I just want them to develop more as individual characters rather than focusing on each other. So, I mean, you summed up everything perfectly in your Lori and Bobby video.
Because, when I made that video, I'm not saying that I want them to break up to be miserable. I want them to break up so they can be better characters.
Yes, that's what I want out of them. I want them to be interesting. I want to like them. But making them together and doing this shit just makes it worse, honestly.
Now, that being said, again, there are some things I do like in this episode. There are some jokes I do like. That butt pizza joke actually kind of made me crack up.
Yeah, it was really funny.
I thought Carl was kind of funny in this episode.
Actually, the side characters in general were pretty funny.
Yeah, they were. The side characters, this episode was amusing to watch up until the second half. By the second half of the episode, it just takes a nosedive and just becomes tedious. But the first half of the episode I thought was amusing. The side characters I thought were fun to watch. And there were a couple of jokes I thought were kind of funny. Even still, this episode should have been so much better. And I get where a lot of the praise is coming from with this episode, but I don't know. It's just I just don't find this interesting. Even though it could have been really interesting. There were interesting ideas that could have made this episode a lot better, but it's just not really explored that much.
This is just one of the biggest wastes of potential that I've ever seen. And yeah, look, I get it. It's a kid's cartoon. It's obviously not going to try to be deep, but you gotta at least challenge kids in a way. Even other cartoons have done that before, so what's the excuse?
This is the same series where it pretty much had one of its main characters come out as bisexual.
Exactly. So what's so wrong with having these two break up and trying to develop as interesting characters? There's nothing dramatic about it. It's not controversial, so go all out.
And it would be interesting, like, how many kids' cartoons, and I don't count regular Shonen Adventure, they're more like teen cartoons.
Yeah.
But, like, how many kids' cartoons do you see where they change the status quo by having a couple break up? Like, not a lot of them. I feel like the only one that comes to mind for me is probably Gravity Falls.
Yeah, that is true. But then again, that was also more of a teen show. Like, seriously, if a kid watched that, they'd probably be terrified of some things in it. Then again, it is a Disney show, so what am I saying?
But anyways, I mean, I don't think this episode's bad. I just think it's okay, I guess.
Honestly, at this point, I don't really want to see much else when it comes to Laurie and Bobby's relationship, because if they're not going to get interesting as characters, then I really don't see any point in wanting to see more of them. If I want to see any couple on the show get more episodes, it'd be Luna and Sam. I want to see more of these two, and not Laurie and Bobby. Especially when Chris Savino said, oh, we want to focus more on Laurie and Bobby's relationship. We'll only do it if it's going to be interesting, because if not, then no thanks, I'm out, see you later.
Yeah, and I know I've said this a bunch of times already, but again, if you love this episode, great, but like, just take our opinion with a grain of salt and just don't take it too personally.
I mean, if you love it, good on ya. You have a higher tolerance than we do. We're just
saying this because, like, we're being entertaining and informative. Anyways, like, that was our weekend. If I'm being honest, it was mediocre.
Yeah, it was not really the greatest week out there.
Honestly, if I'm gonna get really deep into this, but all this week has done is just drifted me further away from the show. Because, like, yeah, we had one good episode that I liked, or at least to me, I think Vossi liked a couple, but to me there was only like one good episode this week, and all it's done is just drift me further away from the show.
Alright, so best of the week for me is obviously going to Game Boys. Like, I can't believe I'm giving a Clink and McCloud episode the best of the week, but what can I say? It was really enjoyable. I liked it. Honorable mention, I mean, there's very little to choose from, but I guess I'll give it a House of Lies for being better than I expected, even though I think it's just okay. Worst of the week is obvious. That's going to Sitting Bull, with dishonorable mention going to The Spies Who Loved Me. Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, it's not that it's bad, but I just didn't care for that episode. It's just so forgettable.
Best? Oh, come on. What do you think? It's Game Boys. Pretty much, like, way above the rest of them. The honorable mention, obviously, going to House of Lies. Pretty solid, at least episode for what it is. Worst? Misconnection. Does nothing for me. Laurie and Bobby's relationship is still uninteresting, and it's pretty bad, but one of the better things about the episode adds nothing to the plot. And the dishonorable mention goes to Sitting Bull, because even though it's alright, it's my only other choice, because I like The Spies Who Love Me. So, there you go.
Alright, best of the bomb surprisingly went to Game Boys. I know, it's a Clink and McCloud episode, but it was actually funny, and it was actually interesting. I really enjoyed it. I want to see more episodes that do something like this. Honorable mention, I'm going to give it to House of Lies. It was better than I thought. Trust me, it could have been a lot worse, and I was not looking forward to this one from the start. Worst of the bomb, yeah, if it wasn't obvious, Sitting Bull. I went into a lot of detail, and I was really angry about this episode. Again, I try not to get angry, but I'm sorry. If an episode's just gonna insult me that way, then that just makes it worse. And my dishonorable mention, I'm gonna give it to The Spies Who Love Me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, all you Ronnie Ann fans, but I just didn't find it very interesting. In fact, we barely had anything to talk about with that episode, so I guess that kind of explains why.
Alright, so that was our week, and yeah, like, I mean, again, like, the episodes, like, it wasn't really that great, but we still got a lot to talk about from them, so that was pretty cool.
And anyway, before we end off, I want to give a shameless promotion, but hey, if you didn't like many of the episodes we talked about, that's okay, because there's a new episode of Ordinary Girl that's out, and you can check it out on my YouTube channel right now. Yeah.
That's right, episode 2 of Ordinary Girl is out, and yeah, like, so far a lot of people have been loving it, and we gotta say thanks for loving it.
Thanks for all the feedback, we really appreciate it, and believe me, that this series is gonna get much deeper, so stay tuned for some surprises.
Yeah, right now we're working on episode 3. Hopefully we'll have it out sooner than this one was.
I'll try to have it out sooner than episode 2, because that was like a 5-month gap. I apologize, everyone.
Yeah.
But
so we'll be working on we'll be working on episode 3, so we'll try and get that out like as soon as possible.
Yeah, but anyway, that's
But until then, I'm CynicTheCritic.
I'm Anglophile Gamer.
I need to go lie down.
And we'll see you next time.
When darkness falls on the House of Loud, around every turn new terror abounds. You don't want to lose your head. Ha ha ha!